All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, February the 9th. Please note that the meeting is being recorded for public viewing online. And with that, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved by Deputy Molina, seconded by Councillor Gallant. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Remind councillors that there's conflict of interest formed in the cabinet. If they have anything to declare a conflict on this evening, please fill it in and pass it into the clerk stating the reason. With that, we'll move on to item number 4, adoption of the minutes. Item 4.1, the regular council meeting from January the 12th, 2026. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So
Moved by Councillor Thorns, seconded by Councillor Colwell. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 4.2, we need the whole meeting from January the 26th, 2026. And do I have a motion to accept the minutes? Moved by Councillor Bennett, seconded by Councillor Dykstra. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 5, consent agenda items. You would have all received that in your package. With that, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda items? So moved by Councillor Thorns, seconded by Deputy Mayor Oblinas. Questions to the motion? See no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. With that, we're going to move on to item number 6, public and administrative presentations. And with that, I'm going to ask Alan Pendergraft from Alternative Residents to come to the podium and give us a talk. Good evening, Alan, welcome.
Good evening. Thanks very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody. It's great to be here. I was offering a tour for the facility that we just acquired on 46762 Homestead Road, and a couple of you were able to attend, so it was nice to welcome people out there. So I wanted to talk about alternative residences. I promise I'm not going to bore you with PowerPoint presentation. I wanted it to be a dialogue, just a conversation more than anything. So I'm the executive director of Alternative Residences, and we operate 10 properties in Moncton and Dieppe currently. We've been in business for over 40 years. And we provide deeply affordable housing for people living with mental illness. And we've done that for 40 years, over 40 years. And it's a wide variety of services that we provide. We provide contracts with social development for people who cannot live on their own. So they require, it's really dependent living. And they're in adult residential facilities. We provide housing through Housing New Brunswick on rent supplement programs. Those people are more on the independent living spectrum. So people who can generally live on their own, but they are living with a diagnosed mental illness, and we check on them once a month. In between are a couple of services that we provide. We provide a crisis intervention center for the Department of Health. And that's a property that we operate in Moncton. And it's a 5-bed facility for people who are going through in the middle of a crisis, depending. They could be homeless, they could be at a mental health facility, they could be at the emergency department. And they come to us as opposed to staying in a hospital bed for a week. Right? And we have 2 rooming houses that we operate independently, both in Moncton. Some people are surprised where they are because one of them in particular is in a pretty nice area of town. On Lakewood, which is down in the Jones Lake area. But we've got great neighbors, and we've been operating that particular facility since the 90s, right? Late 90s. And last but not least, the contract that we started last year with the Department of Social Development is a supportive housing project. And it's a project for people who are chronically homeless. We have a property on 173 Botsford. And it's for low acuity people who have been chronically homeless. And it's a great property. It's operating very, very well. At that particular property, we operate 8:30 to 4:30 Monday to Friday. And knock on wood, we've only had 1 eviction in a 7-room property. And the residents are getting along great in that supportive housing setting. So we're really taking people who are low acuity. We have a great admissions process that we utilize through our board of directors. So that project on Botsford is what we're going to duplicate on 46762 Homestead Road. So that facility, for those of you that know that facility, it was actually purpose-built in 2010 as a seniors care facility. And it was a licensed facility up until 2016, and then since that time, it's gone through a series of ownership, private owners that operated it as a rooming house. So it was relatively unsupervised as a rooming house. Our plan for the property is to operate it on a 7/24 support basis. So we will have people on site, 7/24, cameras on site, both inside and out. We don't expect, again, because of the admissions process that we operate, we don't expect high acuity people. When I say that, well, what do we mean by high acuity? It's people who are prone to damage property or prone to violent episodes harming people or themselves. Okay? So we look to the other end of the spectrum. It's people who really have been homeless for a while. They've gone through the trauma of homelessness. And we want to stand them back up in the community. We work with them typically, the way we did it on Botsford Street is for 90 days. We get them the proper paperwork. They now have an address. We get them stood up and supported. And then once they're supported, they can choose to continue living in that facility for as long as they like. It really is a supportive housing facility. Unlike a lot of what you hear in the news a lot is transitional housing. That's not our intent with this facility. This is a supportive housing facility. I do encourage anybody to talk to us about the success that we've had on Botsford and Moncton. It really is an exceptional project. Here with us tonight is Carmen Oros, our manager of the facility. So Carmen got the first look at the facility. Our plan is to begin operation in around April 1st. That's the tentative plan, to have it up and operating by April 1st. So that's the summary I wanted to provide to people in terms of that project and how it fits in the spectrum of services that we provide at Alternative Residences. We're pretty proud of what we do.
You should be.
So from a procedure perspective, council can ask questions. Unfortunately, members of the gallery, just based on our procedural bylaws, will have to come from council. If anybody in the gallery have questions in the future, they'll by all means reach out to our town office and we will ensure that we connect you with Alan to get any of the answers that you have. I do want to preface it maybe from the clerk's office. Alan, you reached out to council to present. There is no obligation from your organization to go through any zoning bylaws, anything else around that. The property was zoned to be doing the work that you're doing. So this was strictly you reached out wanting to be a good neighbor with the community. I just want to call that out. I do understand, I guess one of my questions, you've started to contact residents in the area. Is that correct?
Yeah, 3 neighbors so far. Still working on some across. And I mean, we know that property, there isn't a lot of very close neighbors to that property. But we want to cover about 1 kilometer in either direction to get to everybody and let them know that what we're doing and introduce ourselves. And the conversations that I've had to date, there's 3 people that I've spoken with, and it's all been quite positive about the work that we're going to be doing. And they appreciated the fact that I took the time to say hello and tell them about what we're doing.
Thank you for what you're doing. It's very much needed. Has there been examples of these types of facilities working well in rural settings before?
Well, the best example actually is Charlie's operation, right? And it's going very well at his location. Again, his is a little different than ours, right? In terms of how it's established and support services that his organization provides versus ours. But it would be the closest and similar. And I'm a big fan of his operation and what he's been able to accomplish in that location. So it would be similar to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you have 24/7 support on site.
Right.
How many people do you intend on having at that?
Yeah, so we're going to start with 10. So the facility itself is a 14-bedroom facility. There's 12 bedrooms in the former seniors complex part of the facility, and 2 bedrooms in a attached apartment complex. And when it was first built, the owners lived on site. So our plan is to operate at the start 10 beds in the former seniors complex, and we'll see how we incorporate the 2 bedrooms at a later date, the other 2 bedrooms in the apartment.
It's not to jump into council's questions, but one piece that I found interesting, Alan, was the selection process that you guys go through. You want to speak to that a little bit? Because I think that's a unique, maybe perhaps it's not, but
We-
first that I had heard of the process.
Yeah, we think it's unique. It's something that we are adamant about as an organization, because it's very, very important for us to support people who are living with a mental illness. And we often hear about people with both mental health and addiction issues, going through either before the trauma of homelessness or after the trauma of homelessness. For us, it's important that everybody that we service is diagnosed with a mental illness. And so we go through a pretty strict admissions process. The first step of it actually is going through, I sit on the Greater Moncton Homeless Steering Committee. And we have a great team on that committee, and we identify people who are chronically homeless. Out of that, we identify the group of people that we feel are low acuity living with mental illness. We utilize the members of the Greater Moncton Homeless Steering Committee that are health professionals. So mental health professionals pour through the list, give us a short list. And then we run that short list of people through an interview process. It really is an interview process, and it involves members of our board. We have an admissions committee that operates as one of our board committees. Very good board. I encourage people to take a look on the website.
Just out of curiosity, the level of mental illness, is that similar to like a nursing home in terms of level 1 care, 2, 3? Like, is there a certain spectrum of people you're trying to move to that facility?
Yeah, there are levels. This facility will serve levels 2, 3, and 4, which is interesting. Level 4 will be rare at this facility. Level 2 and 3 are more likely. And the way our services are categorized through the Department of Social Development. Department of Social Development will do an assessment of a person's mental acuity, and they'll do that with and through the Department of Health. And so combined, they'll come up with an assessment of the level of acuity. It's most likely in this facility that we'll end up with people that are levels 2 and level 3. Having said that, we deal with a lot of level 4 residents today. They're typically people, and we have had cases where people are living with us and they have an intellectual disability, but more often than not, it's people who don't have an intellectual disability, but they've been diagnosed with a mental illness. So that's the profile of the residents. Like I said, we've over 40 years in the different cases that we have. We have a resident in one of our locations today that we provide 16 hours of dedicated support. Actually, we just reduced it to 12 because he's doing so well. Can't do it again. But he's doing so well. And this is a person who has a complex mental illness and an intellectual disability. And in that particular case, he's diagnosed as a level 4 resident. It's less likely in this facility that we'll have people with that level of acuity.
So good segue to my question. What's your support system look like? Do you have like nurse practitioners? Do you have?
All human service counselors. That's our target is always human service counselors for our staff. Carmen comes to us with a human service counselor background and a background in corrections. So human service counselors are focus. We do very little personal support work on site. I always use the example, if somebody has an episode of incontinence, we absolutely will clean them up. We don't call somebody else to come in and do the cleaning. We'll do that. But typically we don't employ personal support workers. We typically employ human service counselors. We don't have a single medical professional on staff. We have a couple on our board. But we don't have a single medical professional on staff. We believe strongly that the medical health profession is the best to serve our population. So we have a great relationship with the mental health department, right, of the Department of Health. And in all cases, that's one of the first things we do when somebody's admitted to us is ensuring they have the mental health supports. So it's, we don't employ them, but we connect them.
That's very,
So you would facilitate transportation back and forth?
We do, yeah. Yeah, we had an early discussion about utilizing the new urban rural ride service. And we will likely utilize that service to the degree that we can. The one thing it won't be reliable enough for us day one is for medical appointments. The other thing I wanted to mention, make sure that council's aware, our intent is to service residents and staff from Salisbury. It's closer and you have the majority of the services that we need. So it's a lot easier to transport people here than it is to transport them into North Moncton. There are exceptions, of course, for medical appointments and specialized medical appointments that aren't available to us yet here. We will transport them and we use our own vehicles and pay mileage in those cases when people require services. We've also used taxis with the Department of Social Development for our adult residential facilities. But given the distance, we'll probably just keep it to a mileage arrangement.
I have one final question. There's no easy way to say it, so I'll just come out and say it. If there is any issue disciplinarian wise, in terms of whatever activities that are going on with an individual in your care, is there any mechanism for if there's any problems with neighbors or any problems in the community with said patients, what happens when that comes to pass?
We have a very strict process. We do utilize it's an incident report process. It's what we utilize today with the Department of Social Development. And this contract of operating that facility will be through social development. So we'll continue to utilize the incident report process. It can and does lead to evictions if needed. You know, and it's unfortunate, and we had one at Botsford, you know, it was unfortunate. But there's an awful lot of people who need help today. And if people can't alter, we determine working with the Department of Health that the problem is behavioral, then the person will have to go and then we replace them with another person and give them the opportunity to move into a housed facility. But we always say it this way, we're first and foremost supportive housing. And we're supportive housing right up until we're not. Right? And so if it requires that shift because behavioral issues cause problems in the community or with other residents, that's a big part of what we do, right? It's creating a little community. A big part of what we do is creating that community so that if somebody is a disturbance within the residence, then it has to be dealt with, right?
Excellent.
So that's how we do.
Thank you.
How would neighbors rate? What's the best way for that?
Directly with me. So what I'm doing with the neighbor doc is literally just giving my card out. Yeah, just offering, and we have a website, alternativeresidences.org, where there is a contact us page as well. But our preference, and Carmen's going to be doing the same thing as soon as I get her business cards. She'll be handing out her business cards as well to local residents because it's important to us, right? And we want to make sure that if a local resident, especially a neighbor, sees something, we'd absolutely like to know about it, right? It's very, very important.
Thank you.
It's good to be a good neighbor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I'd like to thank you for proactively reaching out. And obviously, that's important from being a good neighbor is transparency and coming forward. That's how we can work together. So
Yeah, there's so many rumors, a lot of news in other, other contracts that have started up in Fredericton and St. John. For us, we've had a lot of success. We do it quietly. We don't spend a lot of time in the media. Our plan is not to do that. But we like to make it neighbor to neighbor. We've always been that way. Anytime anybody on council or a neighbor of, right, some people that you serve, want to tour, we always make our facilities open to people that want to see us. And that could include this facility, it could include the facilities that we have in Moncton. We're pretty proud of the facilities that we operate.
Thank you, and I can say we're being recorded tonight, so anybody watching the video, should you want to, we were invited out. We did a tour last week and, it was open, transparent, answered our questions, which in many cases they didn't have to. You certainly reached out with open arms, but I want to reiterate that to residents that should you choose to do so or want to do so, reach out to our town office or go to their website and we'll help facilitate that.
You're doing a very kind thing.
Yeah, and it's nice to see this is our first acquisition since 2020 of another facility, so we're excited by that. We had the new contract on Botsford Street last January, but we don't own that facility. It's a contract that we have for supportive housing, but we don't own it. It's the Housing New Brunswick building. This is our first building acquisition in 5 years, so pretty proud.
Salisbury will welcome
Yes,
you. It's a great place.
yeah, that's what we're pretty excited.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on. There is reports and recommendations for committees and private meetings. There's nothing to report this evening. Moving on to item number 8, reports from administration. Item 8.1, petition in opposition of rezoning application Homestead Road, PID 01052695.
So as council knows, sorry, this is a formality more than anything. This petition was discussed at our public hearing, last month in late January. The town received a petition on 2 different occasions on the 16th and the 21st of January, totaling 75 signatures, outlining 10 various concerns with respect to the rezoning the council is also considering this evening. The procedural bylaw of the town addresses or provides a series of ways to address petitions. We generally, as standard practice, address them all consistently 3 different ways. 1, we put it on the agenda of the next regular council meeting, which is this evening. 2, we send a response from staff to those who brought the petition, which was sent on the 20th. And then 3, we circulated to council via email, which was done on each of the respective days that we received the petition on the 16th and the 21st. So this agenda item is just, like I mentioned, a formality to have it on the record. And the actual debate, should there be any with respect to the proposed rezoning, is actually going to occur when council considers the bylaw further in the agenda this evening. So with that, there is a recommendation just to accept the petition for information.
I'll move that pursuant to the town's procedural bylaw, council accept the petition received on both January 16th and January 21st, 2026 for information.
Moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Dykstra. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 8.2, election of deputy mayor.
Diane?
So our bylaw number 3, which is the proceedings of the municipal council meeting and council meetings, states that a deputy mayor shall be elected at its first meeting annually thereafter for actual election. So for us, it would have been this meeting that you could elect a deputy mayor. But due to the local governance reform kind of changing the dates to the elections and that sort of thing, and with the upcoming election being in May, staff are basically recommending that maybe we hold off and we reach out to the current deputy mayor who's willing to stay on if council so chooses until after the new election, which then we will be back on track with the elections. And there's a recommendation on the floor. If council have any questions or wish to proceed?
I recommend and move that in light of the approaching general municipal election, council extend the current deputy mayor term for Councillor Oblinas until May 2026 and recommence the deputy mayor election cycle as of June regular council meeting following the May election.
So moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See any questions?
I'm sure.
We don't have to do 3 readings from the floor. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Congratulations, Deputy Mayor Williams.
Another,
All right, moving on to item 8.3, grant request, 8.3A, Salisbury Farmers and Artisans Market.
So as council knows, we have a grant policy that encourages multi-year or annual grant requests. This being one that was submitted late last summer before the deadline that generally occurs before budget deliberations. Where it's a renewal of an existing multi-year agreement. We have an existing agreement with the organization whereby it requires that we are provided with an annual update on their operations. This was just done at a recent council meeting. Council previously, when we were considering other multi-year grant requests as part of the 2026 grant budget, essentially deferred this decision until such a point where that presentation was made. And so with that, with the presentation now having been made to council and council having the opportunity to ask questions, we're at a point where we can recommend that we enter into a new agreement. And then just as a quick reminder, this agreement was actually authorized technically by the transition facilitator in 2022. It started officially in 2023 from that budget year for a period of 3 years and was for $5,000 per annum, similar to our existing multi-year agreements with the town specifically that are authorized by council. We're recommending a 5-year agreement in the same amount per annum. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor and then we can answer any questions.
I'll move that council approve the request from the Salisbury Farmers and Artisans Cooperative Limited for a multi-year grant request totaling $5,000 per annum for a term of 5 years and direct administration to prepare a standard multi-year grant agreement authorizing the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal accordingly.
So moved by Councillor Colwell, seconded by Councillor Glenn.
Mhm.
Any questions to the motion? See no questions to the motion, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 8.3B, Salisbury Regional School feeder upgrade.
So as council would have seen also in the package, the town's received a request from the school on January 12th with respect to a series of upgrades that the school is doing at SRS to the existing theater. The request or the letter that was submitted with the request outlines the essence of that, but they're basically gutting all of the AV and the interior of the theater and upgrading it to accommodate a better and more enhanced facility. Their project's expecting to cost about $145,000 to complete. And when it's complete, they'll be able to offer state-of-the-art sound, light, and video as part of the facility's offerings. As council knows, any requests that exceed over $250,000 come to council. Council also knows that we have an existing grant agreement with the school that was authorized last year for the first time, where we provide them also $5,000 per year to be allocated to school priority projects insofar as it has student input in some way. So this is really the first school year that the school has that funding available to them. That's in addition to the bursaries that we also provide around June at the end of the year as part of graduation. And that is to basically counter the number of requests that we get on a one-off basis from the school in the past 2 years. And it does leave the door open for any one-off large-scale projects such as this. We didn't expect one to come this soon, but it is an option that they have available to them. Based on primarily the relation to the town's recently adopted cultural policy and the amenities that the theater would facilitate as part of the town's efforts to find partners such as the school to implement some of the priorities in that policy, we are recommending considering an additional grant. The caveat to that is that to leverage the funding that's available, they're also in conversations with the province, and so stacking funding is important for them to secure the rest of the funding. Is that we're also recommending that they put the $5,000 from 2025 and 2026 towards the project as well to help them kind of reach that goal a little bit quicker. In consultation with the mayor, we looked at the grant budget that was available for this year, which I'll speak to in a second, and ultimately landed at looking at that existing 10 and matching it with another 10 from our grant budget. What council needs to know is that we'll exhaust our grant budget for 2026, and we're at the start of February. So essentially at this point, we have a $50,000 grant budget throughout the year. There's just over 20,200 to be exact, that's remaining. We're recommending some of that this evening, including the motion that was just passed by council, which comes out of that. in the end, if all of this is approved by council, it would leave, just over 5,000 that would be remaining. In our grant policy, we have to have a minimum amount set aside for requests under 250. So last year, it equated exactly $2,000, which is the minimum that we have to set aside, under our policy. We've only had one of those so far this year, so we have to make sure that that amount is still set aside as per the policy. Later in the year, there may be more flexibility if we're in November and we say we have another request and we haven't allocated that full 2,000, but we have a safe bet that it probably won't all come in. Those one-off requests, then we would potentially recommend something a little bit more flexible, but at this point, it's still too early to do that. And the other thing that council needs to know of that, 5,200 that would be remaining, minus the 2,000 for, the one-off requests of $250 or less, is that the intent in maintaining the same budget as 2025 was to bring forward a recommendation again that we discussed last year, to model St. Andrews, the town of St. Andrews pilot for security camera, grant programs to make available to residents. At the time, council wasn't certain of moving ahead, and since then, there's been another number of municipalities that have implemented a pilot project like that. The RCMP have come out in several jurisdictions across the province in support of a program like that, so our intent was to bring that forward. If we were to approve the grant for the school as recommended, to maintain our 2,000 for grants and to consider some sort of CCTV grant of that nature, it wouldn't allow that full 5,000, and ultimately, again, it would still exhaust the full grant budget. So that's the main pieces that we want council to be aware of. We told the school that at this point, our budget is made and a request of this dollar value should be requested through our grant policy as part of budget deliberations, when council can consider increasing the budget to accommodate for them. But ultimately, we got the request on January 12th after that was done. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then we can answer any questions that council might have with respect to the request or grant budget or remaining budgets or any and all of the above.
I move that council approve a one-time grant in the amount of $10,000 to the Salisbury Regional School to help with the repairs and upgrade to the theater, requiring an agreement whereby the school also contributes the 2025 and the 2026 multi-year grants, $5,000 each, towards the upgrades for the total contribution of $20,000.
By Councillor Baxter, seconded by Councillor Colwell. Questions from open, Councillor Ford.
I'm hesitant with this because I feel like it's too early in the year for us to be exhausting that grant budget. But I do also I understand the need for stacking funds for them, so I get it. So I'm on the fence. My question is, are we allowed to tell them that we want you to use the 2025, 2026 $5,000? Like, we don't really have any control over that to go towards this project, do we?
So the agreement that we have just requires them to use it on school priorities as long as there's student input. So they have to meet a number of requirements, including satisfying the town that they've addressed the previous year's.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, so there's a way for us to say, we're doing this to stack funding so that you can hopefully get funding from the province and show other potential, they're gonna do a private, public sponsor component of it as well. So to show that they have certain threshold in funding. So that, in our opinion, where they haven't allocated that funding yet, would be more advantageous to be able to go towards this in the end. So we do have that option. Ultimately, we have the agreement with them.
Right. May I ask a part two? Okay, part two to that. Because I know in the memo, it talked about us being able to use this, what is it, theater? Sorry, theater, as a backup for rain dates for us. But historically, it's been difficult to get into the school to book it when we need it. Is there a way that we can I don't wanna put a sanction on it, but that it could be a little bit easier for us to have access to that because we're giving money? Is that too much? I don't know.
I don't have a firm answer, other than what I would say is that the town has the reciprocal with the school district that facilitates it a little bit more than other times. The challenge is janitors. With the theater.
Will always be the.
Right, that'll generally be the kicker. We can certainly, we kind of had the same discussion, and my understanding is that this might make it a little bit more accessible for community groups, but we already have that access, I would
Right,
say.
okay.
Yeah.
The feeling that I got was that they truly want to make this a community performing arts.
Well, that's what it sounds like.
No, and they
Yeah.
really do, and it was the excitement of that, if you go into Sussex as an example, where they're constantly bringing in the bigger concerts and the bigger community acts, opening up for younger performers to facilitate, from a cultural perspective, so they really are looking at that. I do think like anything like the gym or anything else, it's really getting around not getting around it, it's ensuring we have enough custodians, which is, quite frankly, a human, it's a staffing shortage right now, but I think they're truly open and, what they're doing is really a game changer in that facility.
There's a lot of-
It ties into everything that this council has been working towards from a cultural policy perspective. I was kind of shocked in the fact that we do the cultural policy, this is coming up almost at the same time with the amphitheater and everything else, so. It's like they're listening.
Okay, thank you.
There's hours that are ideal for getting custodians, so it could just be working.
Aligning, yeah, you're right, it's Councilor Cole, so sometimes it might be aligning with when the gymnasium's already in use.
There's Monday to Friday, they're there till 11 o'clock
So
every
the,
night.
right, so the custodian's there anyway, and then on weekends, if there's tournaments going
That's
on,
correct, yeah.
you align with events going on at the same time, it's a good point, it's really just scheduling.
$25 an hour.
Yeah.
You need to rent it on the weekend and get a custodian, right? It's not an overly.
Yeah. I do know that the buzz that I've heard from the performing arts community, which we have a huge performing arts community in this town that a lot of people aren't really aware of, but the excitement that is starting the year. I watched a younger, he's a basketball player, but I watched him performing at the Riverview skateboard,
Good, Mike.
open mic facility they had with youth. And wow, the talent that we have from youth in this community and the fact that they had to go outside our community to perform. It'd be nice to be able to open it up here, so.
I have a couple questions,
Sure.
or more suggestions or comments. I don't know what they are. You can tell me after. So I know for me personally, like the 5,000 when we had gone to kind of, I think I put the motion forward to kind of do that versus getting all of the consistent little asks. I was thinking not less priorities for SRS, but the youth, because usually the youth or the youth programs or the youth committees, and they're coming to us and asking for money. Is there an opportunity for us to somehow adjust our FAR program to allow to transition, maybe some of that goes there? If it's not, because it's all like committee-based, it should be cultural, like I could argue every committee is some sort of a recreational activity, right? It's extracurricular. So I'm just trying to think of like a way that we won't get into a position where a student would come to us and say, we would like to have this to do this very cool, important thing, go to a leadership conference, do what have you, and we don't have the money because we've done this. So like if we could, I know we've had it for like a year and a half or so-ish now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a possibility, because I know that a lot, there's sponsorships involved and stuff with the FAR and GET programs, but
I think as we grow that program,
But some things on that, like registration for something like that would more than likely be eligible in the existing parameters, like so.
but I think if you're looking at project things,
fundraising stuff,
yeah,
like
like.
the
like Jump-
Renaissance group and
Right.
leadership,
The Jumpstart has different levels of what you can apply for community grants. It's just we're not there yet in the, it's been a very successful program.
I wouldn't,
Future visioning, but that's not there yet.
yeah, I wouldn't recommend, especially right now with timing, like we're on crunch time to bring some of these things to council right now.
it's just a
Future vision.
comment I wanted to
Yeah,
mention, because if we're, I'm sure the sponsors giving money to that program, we know it's going to youth
right,
in recreation
Right.
and arts, extracurricular, all those
Right.
things. There just may be an opportunity to, tap into it for those situations where it makes sense.
on the individual basis, I think some of the school requests historically, at least, like looking back the last couple of years, some of them that wouldn't be eligible for FAR would be like some of the classroom based
Right.
things that we've gotten that wouldn't be eligible. I would, without talking to Massimo, obviously,
Yeah.
would caution against changing it right now, where
That's
we're
perfectly
starting to
fine.
see some of that, like, uptake in the program, which is what we want. But that's not to say that, to your point, that like down the road, it might not be.
I think as we grow the
Yeah.
program, Councilor Cole, I think it's a good suggestion that we examine, look at it and how we can explore down the road. I think it's a good
Yeah, it could just be like a sub bullet
Yeah.
to the policy that if there's a grant request from a youth group or person that's doing something of that nature.
I love to see in 10 years' time, but it's grown into all kinds of different facets that we offer opportunities for.
This would only be a pause for this year, like, and last year that already passed, right? So it would just be this school year, is the other piece, because they, yeah.
And opportunities like this don't come along often, that we actually see the investment in our school as residents here, all the children. There's not been this type of investment in a long time. So it is nice to see.
We should expect to get more of the smaller grants if this is gonna go to stacking the funds for the
I see
theater.
Councillor Dexter.
To that point, how appropriate is it for the town to be putting funds toward this? In terms of the fact, does the city of Moncton have to pay for some renovations for the different schools and it's inside the city? Like, I've not really been heard much about municipal funds going into the school system for these kind of renovations.
They definitely go into the outside of the building for sure. I can't speak to leaders. We'd have to check on them. But I do know for grounds, like for grounds and anything to do with playgrounds and things outside, definitely there's precedent for that.
I'm just trying to find here, I know there's precedent in Riverview as well.
Cause I 100% agree, the theater is exactly the same, I remember it when I was there. Yeah, that's 24 years ago.
Yeah, I guess I would
I'm not disputing that needs refresh by any stretch, it's just, again, trying to maximize the tax dollars as much as possible, both here and there. To me is the most appropriate course.
Yeah, because if we funnel all of the grant money there, the grant money that we've already given there, it's creating a hole somewhere else.
Exactly, and that's why if we were to help fund whether this amount or a different amount, how is that going to be a multiplier? I don't really understand how that's going to work in terms of what the province or the school district is providing for funding for this renovation. I just like more details and.
So with like, with the province in particular, when they look at funding to show that they have a commitment from the municipality is an advantage to the school. If the school were to apply to the province that's coming to us, the province, based on the funding they're gonna go through, the province will come to us and will ask for the town's opinion on it. So that will generally happen when groups outside of the municipality are looking for RDC funding. And in this case, they may not, if council decides to put a contribution towards it, because they'll know that the town is in per se. That's one piece, and then the other piece is just from where they're going to the public to show that they have X amount of dollars committed is to their advantage, just from a fundraising perspective. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
to that point though, if they're trying to fundraise, I'm assuming it said, one part of it said 90,000, but another part said 145,000. How far have they got to that goal to date? How much fundraising has been occurring to date? Cause if this is the start, then I'm less interested, just due to the fact that
This
there's
is
no effort.
definitely not the start.
I'm not familiar, I have no idea what's going on.
Well, it's like School Cash Online has had like a.
Sheet.
Yeah, you can buy a
They've
seat.
been doing a
or-
fundraiser
yeah.
for quite a
So
while.
it's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no,
Only now we'll
It's
think that's
actually-
general public.
It's done almost,
It's
yeah,
done, like,
yeah.
gonna have a grand opening here at the city.
Mark,
Yeah.
the grand opening.
Like, it's completed pretty much.
But now there's.
I've not paid attention. I have one.
He sure does.
1 year older than Leslie. No, I just haven't been for a while.
To your point,
guitar.
when we first discussed the change in like giving the funds for the 5,000 a year to the school, I think I brought up too, like, we need to advocate, like, write a letter to the Minister of Education or superintendents and just on the behalf of
Yeah,
our school specifically, but.
And I'm all for
more
trying to-
funding For,
to try to get a hold of that funding, try to stack funds where possible. That I'm all in favor of. It's just, again, to be efficient with tax dollars as much as possible.
Sorry.
Two questions. What, our commitment to the school has been $5,000 annually.
Right,
Well, just recently.
that's already been recent last year, yeah.
Right. And that was for 5 years?
Yeah.
And is there a way, my question to you in regards to the theater was, is there a way that we can tie in our arts and culture with grant, like with a grant request that could be dedicated to them?
multi-year too, so that way you can save the higher amount over time.
Cause we're adapting our, do you know what I mean? Like.
No, I don't.
Or you don't have a budget towards the cultural.
Oh, is that what, do you mean allocate some of our?
Actually, we have funding for that.
Can we tie it into that so that we can be, because we're in the process of adapting that,
Mhm, mhm.
right? Is there,
I
you
see what you mean.
know what I mean?
In this year's budget, it's not a lot. I wanna say we have 2,000 or maybe 2,500 allocated in that budget line.
But even over 5 or 10 years,
Yeah.
Right.
it all of a sudden becomes
Yeah,
12,500 or
Yeah.
$25,000
Well,
in funding.
that's what I have. This is the one-time ask versus the long-term. That's gonna need,
yeah,
but this is not at the time, even with the administration of the school, when this came forward, I asked Austin, I said, we could have done exactly what you're talking about. But this sounds like it's more like an immediate this year.
yeah, that's my
My
understanding.
understanding is it's like an immediate this year. I agree, though, that they're not done over there.
My understanding is that they've pushed ahead with the renovation
They have.
and they are getting the funding now.
Mhm.
So,
But that's now, that's what I'm saying, but that's now they've done the work.
but they have people that are pledging gifts for the next several years, so in order to pay off that debt. So that's where I'm wondering if it's something that we could, like,
Yeah, do we need to give
This is
2,000 now
definitely-
or
yeah.
and pledge to give?
and this definitely ties into our municipal and cultural arts plan, because we are going to be able to use this facility. Everyone in the
Oh, yeah.
town is gonna be able to use it. We are going to have people from outside of our town wanting to use this facility.
Oh, no
This
question.
is state of the art. Everything is so high end in this facility. It's incredible. So I believe that it is in our best interest to definitely have some sort of collaboration going on here. Let's see what we can get. Let's see how we can pull in some funding and shift it over to them. And I was actually gonna say, we need to make a 5-year commitment of a $5,000 donation in support of this.
So should we table this for the time being until we have some more details, or are we?
We have one more meeting so I need to know all the details the council wants to know.
Could we like,
Work, Austin?
Yeah.
could we decrease it to 5,000, but then plan for the next 5 years to have out of that
We check with
cultural?
administration whether
Like
that's.
that, fine.
Yeah,
Whatever pressure, my question to find administration, what pressures are under right now?
yeah.
So
Right.
if the immediate 10,000
Right.
bucks to now versus 5, I agree
That's true.
perfectly, but what is the pressure that's under right now? Because originally I talked about having a long-term commitment for this. I would love to do a long-term
Yeah.
commitment to make sure that facility
Yes.
is brought to the level it needs to be. Because
I think it'd be a shining star too for that cultural policy
Yeah,
too.
it
Like
would be.
this is our very first kickoff. we've had.
In addition to the 5,000 grant.
That we give them already,
Right,
yeah.
so
Right.
It would actually be a significantly more.
I think it'd be good to sit down, Austin, with, again, with the school administration, with some of the artists that have been working on, what is their vision?
Yeah,
Like, where they're
It's
at,
available.
what the long-term 5-year, 10-year plan would be.
Yeah.
So that we can fully understand it.
we can get those details, and just so I can close this before I forget, to Council Blake's question, the town of Review I know is the only one that I know of off the top of my head that has a facility like this in their school. I can't find 2024's number, but they gave 64,900 in 2023. So that's an annual,
Can read it?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's an annual
I
grant.
wish we could
It's us.
do this before budget time.
Yeah, and
No,
that's,
it's us.
yeah.
And I actually said that to them. They came to me right before Christmas.
Mm,
I said, I did tell them and they were good about it. I just said,
Just missed it.
Yeah, cause I'm not,
5,000.
like, the $10,000 doesn't bother me. It just bothers me that it really ties our hands for everything else, not just our hands, but the next council that's coming in May.
Ah,
Like,
it's time, it's just time.
yeah.
it doesn't leave a lot.
That's why if we can get into a
Yeah.
long-term commitment, we'll be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let us,
But well, show the students and administration that we truly believe in this.
Yes.
okay, so am I understanding correctly that council wants us to come back at the next council meeting?
Yes.
Yeah,
With
Yeah,
more.
because we want to close it before.
Is that
Yeah.
enough time for you?
Yeah, no, that's fine, yeah, that's fine. The only piece I would say is we have a motion to it, to table it, so.
Okay, I'll move to table it
Yeah.
until the next.
I'll second it.
It's moved by Councillor Thorne, second by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion?
My question, so what are we, what are we going to be recommending? Just so that I'm clear in my head, so that they use the 5,000 fee this year?
Right now, well, that's gonna depend on what they come back with, so we're gonna get those details to see what exactly.
We're gonna find out
the
whether
need
if we
is.
was allowed for five, whether that be
What is
sufficient.
our going, like, here's what we would like to offer? That's what I would like to.
We're trying to understand what they truly need.
Yeah, what they truly need.
Maybe they have $145,000 fundraised since January 12th.
Right.
That's
Would they
the-
be better off with a longer term
Yeah.
thing with us on upkeep or upkeep or
Yeah,
things that need to take place, so we can get some background on that. When we originally talked to them, it was this big enormous thing that they'd undertaken, and they took me through and toward, and the amount of work that was being done was very impressive.
Yeah.
So,
that's what we're gonna ask, and we'll tell her, the school, Mrs. Constein, that, more than likely, there's gonna be a requirement there that they allocate that funding from this year and last year to maximize that. And then depending on, unless they don't need it, in which case then maybe that's not the case, but, we'll have that conversation and we'll come back with a recommendation. And so I think, okay, wait, so Thorne and Bannister moved it, but we have to make sure that the mover and seconder of the first motion are okay with
friendly
it.
amendment?
Yeah, not a friendly amendment, just that they're okay with us
Table.
tabling. Yeah,
Yes or no?
oh yeah, we didn't vote to first, but doesn't Bannister and Caldwell have to confirm that they're, no, okay, perfect. So we have to all favor them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8.3C, Salisbury Taekwondo.
Pass that one to Diane.
Okay, speaking of funding requests. So we received a funding request through the online grant form for the Taekwondo Club, looking for funding for $440 to help less fortunate students attend the Taekwondo classes. As we were discussing, anything over $250 has to come to council or mayor and council for their approval, and the amounts were, as the CAO mentioned, we, actually, they'll take another 5,000 because of the farmer's market, was decided this evening. For the purpose of the funding, request is to help with monthly fees for less fortunate students. Staff are recommending that we not approve this grant request, but encourage the applicant to have the students apply for funding through the FAR program, as well as suggesting that they may want to consider applying for multi-year grants in the future. So there's a recommendation on the floor of council.
I'll move that council not approve the grant request from Salisbury Taekwondo to help with monthly fees for less fortunate students at this time, but encourage the students to apply for funding through the FAR program, as well as suggest that the applicant may want to consider applying for a multi-year grant for the program.
So moved by Councilor Colwell, seconded by Councilor Thorne. Questions to the motion?
I do.
Councilor Colwell?
It's more of a red tape, because the only thing for me with farm that's challenging is they have to pay first before they get reimbursed, and that's,
Oh, they do?
they do.
Oh, I did not know that.
You have to submit a receipt to get the grant money, right, or to get the refund.
Unless it's with registration and the associations will work with, so we have some, I can't speak to that on the record, but
Taekwondo would have to work with us.
It's not but it's not a known, like, when you go on to the website.
it's it's based on with the organizations that would get it, so because for registration, so for the other stream, for gas equipment and transportation, we need the receipts, because we can process multiple of those applications until you reach your maximum. For registration, it's provided directly to, in this case, it would be Taekwondo. So, now that we do the rolling, like, we can accept registrations all the time. As soon as people know what the registration costs are, they can apply through FAR, and the approval letters go out relatively quickly. In which case, in this case, again, Taekwondo would get XYZ participant is approved for this amount, XYZ participant is approved at this amount. It depends on when they apply. So sometimes they've already paid, like we process some still now for hockey, and that's due in September. But if they apply in September, then the association will have a letter that says that that's paid for.
So if they had already paid, as an example, it would still go to Salisbury Taekwondo, and she could refund.
Right, yeah,
them.
yeah. And I don't know when they do their registration, if it's like once a year or once a session.
Maybe it's reaching out to Master Boltons and educating them. on-
Yeah, and we've had that discussion before, and just for clarity, like, I don't wanna make it seem like staff are recommending not supporting.
No, it's the process. There's already a program in place to support the kids.
And they will get more funding. If they
We're
go
very clear that this
Oh,
was
it
like,
was-
this should have been a far.
right.
That's exactly what I just brought up when we talked about the
But,
school, right?
yeah.
It's like being able to tap into this for youth and
Right.
creating those recreational.
We're a
This is
year-
exactly what Fire
We're a year and a half into the program and it's just so phenomenal. We have these little learning curves by organizations and individuals that have to take place. I do think as we go back to the Taekwondo group, we should also just remind them that they do apply for a grant for their annual. I know they don't know from year to year whether they're running that tournament.
Yeah, which
But
we
that-
generally
That
does.
tournament they generally do and it's a big fundraiser for that organization. It's a huge benefit to the community, It brings in Taekwondo individuals from around the province, so it's definitely win-win. So I'm definitely encouraging them as we go back to apply for grants for those type of things. And then we are certainly there to help all individuals that live in Salisbury.
Right.
I think that's kind of the clear point too. If they have anybody that's coming from outside the Salisbury area, they can unfortunately be on their own.
Right.
And
And,
that's why this is important
yeah,
as well, that we go through fire, so that we ensure that it's residents of Salisbury that we're helping.
and there is a precedent of organizations applying through FAR where, like, we won't approve if the address is not.
Right, that's why I was bringing that up.
So,
Just so that if you were to do this blanket this way, we wouldn't have that protection. This is why fire is there, so that we can administer.
I have two questions.
Sorry, go ahead.
So Diane, when the email comes in, does someone respond to the applicant and say, there is a program, it's called FAR, this is what you should be doing?
Most of them, so this one was like just
Okay,
choose a word.
so they've already been.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, advised. So the second thing is Austin is on the FAR program. Are there only 2 times that they can apply?
We
all the time.
We opened that up.
Yeah.
So it is all the time now, okay,
that was, I forget when we
It
changed.
was, we did it right before the last comedy thing.
okay,
That's been a year ago.
that's awesome.
For,
Okay, yeah.
been a while.
Massimo is coming to present, an update on FAR, just in general, kind of an annual update at community of the whole, yeah.
And it was over, right? We don't allocate it anywhere else.
Yeah, no, it's not part of our
It was right before
General,
community, it was right
yeah,
before community days, we opened it back up because
summer.
we did, because we announced it during that community days.
That makes- yeah, that
It makes sense, because it's specific, because of what it's designated for.
Yep.
There are things going around all
Yeah,
year long
yeah.
for them to apply.
Which
Okay,
people learn from.
So just need a little bit of clarification on the payment thing.
Mhm.
So you're saying that the applicant has to pay?
Not
first,
necessarily.
and then he gets reimbursed, I need clarification.
Not necessarily. So let's say someone's registering for Taekwondo.
Yeah.
If they're applying for funding through the registration stream,
Mhm.
that funding is going to Taekwondo. It's not going to Phyllis who's registering for
Right.
Taekwondo. So we provide a notice to the applicant. So to Phyllis registering for Taekwondo, you've been approved for up to X amount. The funding will be sent to Taekwondo for X amount. Taekwondo is gonna get a letter that says Phyllis has funding through FAR, Austin has funding through FAR, Joe has funding through FAR, Bill has funding, like all of that, and it gets
Yeah.
sent in one payment. Now, the challenge with when we only had 2 or maybe we had 3, I forget how many we had. When we only had a few intakes throughout the year was that's what was happening, was that groups were people were
We
registering
did the line.
and then getting a refund from the organization. In this case, as the applicants have to know of the program, have to register in advance and or apply in advance, as long as they apply in advance, then that money will go straight to the organization. Normally, the organizations have a good enough relationship with the town at this point through the program.
Right,
that they're
that was
gonna
my
say-
next question.
Yeah.
So are we getting, so we're getting the cooperation from?
Yes, yeah, and I think, as far as I know, that's a good question for Maxwell, if I'm being totally honest, to see. I haven't heard anything from the associations that I'm
Yeah.
familiar with,
Because it would
As
be
of
good
now.
to make, I mean, clearly they need the funding, they can't afford to pay it upfront and wait to get
Right,
reimbursed.
that's right, yeah.
We wanna run it like all the other programs are
Right,
being.
right.
And then the GET program, you have to pay first.
Right,
To get
yeah,
reimbursed.
Which
So
makes sense.
it doesn't really state, so hopefully this will fit. It doesn't really state if it's registration, it just says monthly fees. I see.
But this is specifically for individual participants.
Right,
Thanks.
which still falls under.
Yes,
Exactly,
exactly.
yes, exactly.
Excellent.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Additional questions?
In theory, though, if their applicants apply for this, they get more than that for.
That's what we, yes,
It's 300 per.
per person.
A year, right?
Yeah, a year,
January
yeah,
to
or
December.
500 of them, yeah, calendar year.
500 then, exactly.
Seeing no additional questions, guess we're voting to pass on there. Okay.
Yeah,
All in favor? Aye.
yeah, all in favor of the motion.
Yeah. Here, you have the direction. Okay. Moving on to item number 9, bylaws, 9.1, first and second readings. Amendments to bylaws number 16 and 17 regarding rezoning PID 01052695. I'll just remind everyone that this evening, if this was to pass, it does not mean that anything has been ratified. Anything would have to go on for a third reading at the next council meeting. Just wanted to clarify that at the beginning. So with that, do we have a motion?
I've got the background,
Good.
yeah. So on January 26th, council held a public hearing under the provisions of the Community Planning Act for the purposes of hearing public support and objections regarding the proposed rezoning at PID 01052695 on Homestead Road. At that meeting, a summary of the input was read into the record. At this point, council has fulfilled the requirements of the Community Planning Act, and council must now make a decision with respect to the readings of the bylaws, of which there are 2. As the mayor mentioned, in the event that the council wishes to proceed, the recommendation to proceed must be moved, seconded, passed, and then it will be brought to the regular council meeting in March for third reading. The main piece, like the mayor mentioned, is that the passing, if it passes this evening, does not mean that the bylaws are approved. And then for council's consideration, we do wish to raise a couple of points. We did receive correspondence from a nearby resident who has expressed opposition to the content of one of the reports provided. Those were included at the request in the agenda package for perusal. The other piece is that following the meeting on January 26th, a series of follow-up questions were asked to Glenn, who's here with us as well, if there's any questions that council might have for him. But that was specifically with respect to the location or proximity to a site that was raised of concern by several in attendance at the public hearing. There's 5, I think it was, kind of FAQs we formatted them as in council's package. Just to summarize, the proposed site is not in any way connected to the nearby construction and demolition landfill site. The other piece that it's important to note is that if in the event that the landfill wanted to expand, it would require a series of rezoning and public processes. The reason for that is that the construction and demolition site is considered a non-permitted use or a grandfathered use from before zoning was in place. So now that zoning is in place, our bylaws are actually silent on the operations of landfills. So if someone applied to operate a landfill within the town, they would need to come to council to ensure, one, that the process, that council would want to entertain the process to explore what would be permitted under what conditions, what that would look like. And that would apply as soon as the landfill were to expand beyond the existing PIDs. So that does provide some reassurance to some of the questions that were asked. And the other questions or concerns, I should say, were with respect to access to the site. So there is a registered right of way. That is nothing to do with the proposed use. It was and is in place already. It was actually flagged as part of the rezoning process with Plan 360. And based on existing provisions of the zoning bylaw, access via the right of way is only permitted for certain uses, which are outlined in the existing agreements with that right of way. So. That's the premise of the additional content that we have. The last kind of pieces that I'll mention is the proposed bylaw amendments, and there are 2. So one is for the zoning bylaw and one is for the future land use map as part of the municipal plan. Those have been available in full on the town's website since notices were issued on December 11th. The act requires 14 days notice. We've also issued notices on social media. And we included the statements and made them available at town hall should anyone have wanted to do that, which means that we've fulfilled the requirements of section 15.4 of the Local Governance Act. That does allow council to read the bylaws by title only, but as standard practice, should council want to proceed, Diane will read the first reading in full of the amendment. And then we'll do second reading by title only, should council so choose to proceed. And then, at third reading in March, we would do the same thing by title only. So with that context, there is a motion on the floor. They do have to be done separately. So bylaw 16 and bylaw 17, and then our recommendation would just be to pass move the motion, move in second, have debate and discussion on both of the bylaws because they're obviously connected, and then make a decision.
So I have a question prior to the motions. Should any conditions which to be attached to any of the motions, they need, or to conditions to the bylaw be approved, does it have to be read in the motion, or is it after debate and then it becomes a friendly amendment?
It has to be in the bylaw, so changes can be made up until third
Well,
reading.
So, but if during debate.
We have to, yeah, we would have to move
So we would have to make note of it, then when we come back and do a friendly amendment.
No, it would have to be a formal amendment, yeah.
Mhm.
And the piece, there's certain conditions that could or could not be added, obviously. There's some conditions already in the bylaw that Diane would read, but those are the conditions that were recommended by the planners and the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee. So those conditions are still there. Those are written in the bylaw. So any conditions that council wants to consider.
Yeah, I just wanted to ensure if anything was brought up,
Directly, yeah.
the ability to.
Yeah, talk directly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want both motions?
The first motion, I would just say that the discussion and debate on both motions can happen after we enter into debate on the first one, because
Okay.
the second motion will just be a formality. Yeah, they're very much, we're not gonna split hairs in terms of what's zoning bylaw and what's future land use. Yeah.
Well, I'll move that council have first and second reading of bylaw number 16-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 16, Town of Salisbury Municipal Plan to change designation on the future land use map of PID 01052695 with the clerk reading bylaw number 16-1 in full for first reading and having second reading by title only.
Second.
It's moved by Councillor Extra, seconded by Councillor Corner. Questions? Seeing no questions, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
So now I will read 16-1. So first reading of bylaw number 16-1, a bylaw to amend the bylaw number 16, Town of Salisbury Municipal Plan. The Council of the Town of Salisbury, under the authority vested in it by Section 24 and in accordance with Section 111 of the Community Planning Act, SND 2017 C19, amends bylaw number 16, the Town of Salisbury's municipal plan, and enacts as follows. Number 1, bylaw number 16, the Town of Salisbury municipal plan is amended by changing the designation as shown on the future land use map, Schedule A, of the Town of Salisbury municipal plan for the property known as PID number or PID number 01052695, as shown on Schedule A1 attached hereto and forming part hereof from rural designation to industrial designation. Now, second reading by title only, bylaw number 16-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 16, a Town of Salisbury municipal plan. And second reading.
Thank you. And I'll just remind everyone again that the reading in the first and second reading does not mean that anything's been ratified or passed. There's still a third reading that would take place at a future meeting, and the decision could be changed. With that, we'll move on to.
The other piece that I'll just mention is that Councillor Banter just forwarded us another objection that came in today. I just double checked and it is one from one we already have noted, so we'll put it on file, and make sure it's available. What's that?
Okay, vote.
No, it's the same process as we would follow with anything else. I'll just mention that verbally. But we can go to the second for items or bylaw 17.
I'll move that council have first and second reading of bylaw number 17-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 17, Town of Salisbury zoning bylaw to change the name on PID 01052695 with the clerk reading bylaw number 17-1 in full for first reading and having second reading by title only.
Second.
It's moved by Councillor Cowell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Oblinus. Questions to the motion?
Just out of curiosity, I don't know if it necessarily pertains to this particular rezoning, but I think the zoning of industrial, the term industrial just leads to a connotation of an open pit mine, some kind of heavy industry moving in. Is this more appropriate to have been commercial to begin with?
That's probably a question for the planners, but it is a question that was answered when we did the consolidation, because council made the decision to have light industrial and normal industrial. That was a council decision and whenever we approved that in last summer, early fall. And the intent was that to ensure that whenever anything, i.e. commercial, what have you, came forward to council, that there was the opportunity to have the public hearing and go through this process. That's my understanding. I don't know, if this would better meet commercial pieces. I don't know if you want to speak to anything on that. I don't know. Yeah, go there, please.
Austin, that letter of objection is exactly this question. That's what they want clarification on. Why is it deemed as industrial versus commercial?
Essentially, it's the definition in the zoning bylaw that this would be classified as a light industrial. This type of use is allowed in several zones in the town of Salisbury zoning bylaw, but the municipal plan states that for a rural area, the only possibility is rezoning to industrial zone and designation with strict condition on the future use of the land if the reasoning would pass through. So that's the reason this was chosen as the proposed zone to accommodate such proposal, essentially.
So having said that, is there commercial zoning in the rural area? Or is that not available?
No, not that I'm aware of. There's not the highway commercial zone in the rural. It's just really located near the highway at the Fredericton.
Is that just
What is
because we
commercial?
consolidated our plan instead of redid the plan? So like we could put commercial in the rural areas
In the future.
in the future when we redo the whole town
And
plan?
that's why we wanted to redo the whole town plan, but we were years away from it.
One
Okay.
piece that, that we had a similar kind of discussion is with the shipping container piece of the initial amendment. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
You might have to go back up, we'll see. One of the pieces that we had a discussion with respect to the shipping containers for seasonal vending was that the initial text memo that was proposed was that it was permitted in commercial zones, but the town doesn't actually have, other than highway commercial, a zone that's called commercial per se by itself. But it's permitted in, commercial activity is permitted in town center, highway commercial, residential neighborhood service. So the idea of a commercial activity is permitted in a number of different zones. So I guess hypothetically, there could be a zone in the rural area that allows for commercial activity, but you can't put town center in the rural area. You can't put highway commercial because it's not near the immediate Trans-Canada area. Nor is it residential neighborhood service, which runs along the corridor, Fredericton Road. Like those all have specific policies related to them. That's why they're separate and not called commercial. So residential neighborhood services specifically along that corridor along Fredericton Road, it looks at things like access on the Fredericton Road. Highway commercial is specifically like that because of its proximity to the highway. It permits some others that might not be permitted in traditional town center or residential neighborhood service zones. So that's the way that our zoning bylaw is written. And I think that kind of adds what Guillaume said, adds more context. What I was saying is that it was a council decision to make sure that we had this light industrial use to ensure that anything in the rural areas in particular that would be requested that would fit this definition went through a public process. And there was a previous application that council will be aware of that was about this time last year, I think. I don't remember exactly, but that was a similar type use, and it was that specific type of zoning that led council to basically have Plan 360 make that recommendation to have light industrial to always require a rezoning. So not to say there couldn't be a commercial zone down the road. We can introduce one as well at some point should council choose. Like you don't need to do a full municipal plan exercise for that. But ultimately, to Glenn's point, the intended use meets the definition of light industrial in the consolidated version we have today.
No, and that's fair. It's just when you envision industrial, you envision heavy equipment. So light industrial is light heavy equipment. The connotation is always going to be loud, noisy, a lot of obstruction, a lot of unfriendly neighbors. And I don't think that's necessarily the case here.
Now, when we do redo the municipal plan, would we rezone that again, or potentially rezone that?
What do you mean, that this specific parcel if it passes? No, it would be very similar, like, I'll use an oversimplified version, but what is now town center was village center. So the same zoning bylaws apply, so as long as those are still there, then they would still carry over per se, if it's just something as simple as a name change. If it's a new zone, it would stay in that existing zone, it wouldn't become.
Grandfather.
Yeah, it's essentially
Would it be easy to adapt, like, a new definition or a new?
no, nothing with zoning is easy ever.
No.
No. I'm not sure if there would be, like, so right now, I would argue that, and this is again without. Like Glenn and Lori and all the other planners are probably gonna say, Austin, stop talking before you, I would argue right now, at least based on the applications that the town receives, that there wouldn't be, where enough of our zones where commercial activity is concentrated has various zones that permit that activity and that can accommodate it, that introducing just a commercial zone wouldn't be that different than what we see in light industrial, for as an example, like.
No, and fair enough, but we
It's
don't.
the name, I
It's
think.
the name,
But
yeah.
it's a name, but it's also, we don't have an industrial park to funnel people into. And that fundamentally, if we had an industrial park, that you could say, well, all industrial activities or commercial activities are going to this area, like Caledonia, like Moncton North, or. We don't have that capability here currently, unless we were talking about purchasing land for that purpose to try to spur some job creation, but I don't know if that's necessarily in our mandate. Right.
But the bylaw as it's written right now with the, like requiring the public consultation. That protects us from making sure that we're not going to have heavy industrial
Right.
Right.
moving somewhere without this type of a consultation.
It would have to go through exactly, even, it's the same, a text amendment is this exact same process as this, like the shipping container piece is that's a text amendment. So we're adding a sentence or two here and a sentence or two there. And it's the presentation that we already got, it's the motion tonight, it's the public hearing, the 3 readings, the posting of the public notice. So it's a robust process for good reason. But you can rezone a particular parcel like we have an application for here, like we're considering tonight, or you can change the text in a sentence and it's the exact same process. So it's
Well,
not-
I think the robustness is important, just so that everyone knows that something is moving into their neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that they can have, if they do have some issues or concerns, that they can be addressed, so that either it doesn't go ahead, or if it does go ahead, that they know the recourse that they do have to try to address any future problems.
And we mentioned that at the public hearing, but that I think is, would be music to the province's ears, and that's part of the reason that municipal reform happened.
Right.
So that to implement land use and have, local decision-making authority to process them. Because the same process would not have happened before reform, so that's the intent, one of the intents of local governance reform.
See no additional questions? Sarah?
You've read it already.
We have to do all six first.
We have to
Right,
pass
let's do the all in favor first.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? No, three.
All right, so first reading of bylaw number 17-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 17, Town of Salisbury zoning bylaw. The council of the town of Salisbury, under the authority vested in it as section 53, in accordance with the section 59 of the Community Planning Act, SNB 2017 C19, amends bylaw number 17, the town of Salisbury zoning bylaw, and enacts as follows. Number 1, bylaw number 17, the town of Salisbury zoning bylaw is amended by changing the zoning as shown on the zoning map, Schedule A of the town of Salisbury zoning bylaw, the property known as PID number or PID number 01052695, as shown on Schedule A1 attached hereto and forming part hereof, from rural area RA to industrial I, subject to the following conditions. A, that the permitted main use on the property be limited to the light industrial use consisting of office space, shopping cart repair facility, and general maintenance facility for grocery stores. And B, that development of the property shall be done in general conformity with the Schedule A2 attached site plan. And C, that the fence indicated in Appendix A2 be opaque and that a tree buffer be maintained in general conformity with Schedule A2. That would be the first reading in entirety, and the second reading, bylaw number 17-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 17, a town of Salisbury zoning bylaw. Again, that is first and second reading of both bylaws, and until third reading and enactment, things can be changed.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone once again of that until third reading happens, changes can be amended.
At this
or-
point, we have not had any direction for additional additions.
No, there hasn't, no, I'm just stating between now and third reading, that could still occur.
Right.
Nothing you need to do with you.
Nope, that's it. The only other piece that I'll mention is we got a request today, and we've heard it a couple times in terms of how, the general public will know, the outcome, I guess, of council's decision tonight for first and second reading. And in the next few days, as we've been doing for the last few months, we'll post council highlights. We'll make sure this is amongst the highlighted items on social media, but it will also be in the highlights that are posted on the website that cover all the motions that are passed.
All right, with that, we do have to enter into a closed session on financial 68(1)(c) local governance act. And with that, I unfortunately do have to ask members of the gallery.
Okay, Glenn, but we're just. It's just a vote. So you're fine.
You do the motion, you're done for the motion.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, you have a motion.
For a recess.
Seconded.
And then come back.
Move by Councilor Lawson.
I mean, but move by Thorne.
Go ahead. Seconded by Councilor Bannister. With that, we'll move on to item number 11, mayor and councilor statements. I'm just like to congratulate all the basketball teams on the weekend for the tremendous job they did. Their BB team represented their community very well. Very proud of them, and our girls and boys are moved off to sectional this weekend. And our boys are hosting, so I hope everybody gets up to support them. With that, any councilor statements?
I was gonna say the same thing.
Okay. We've got, and then actually I gotta give kudos to Councilor Cole. She must be exhausted from that weekend that she did. Kudos to you, by the way. With that, we are gonna move on to notices of motion, 12.1 text amendment for seasonal, yeah, I can't say that. Shipping containers of vending facilities commence.
As council
Public
knows,
process.
we got a public presentation from Jenna with Plan 3 at our last meeting. Motion or resolution that commences the public process, sets the date for the public hearing, officially requests the input from the PrAC, so on and so forth. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor.
I'll move that whereas council has agreed to consider a text amendment to bylaw number 7, the town of Salisbury zoning bylaw to permit shipping containers to be used as temporary seasonal vending facilities and for this to be a permitted use within the community use zone. Be it resolved that the council of the town of Salisbury directs that the appropriate bylaw be prepared to amend the zoning bylaw as it pertains to the above noted changes, that the proposed bylaw be referred to the Southeast Planning Review and Adjustment Committee, PrAC, for the reviews at the February regular meeting of PrAC, that the notice of intention requirements of the Community Planning Act be fulfilled with respect to the proposed text amendment, and sets the regular council meeting on March 9th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers at the municipal office at 56 Douglas Street, Salisbury, New Brunswick, as the date, time, and place for the public hearing of consideration of objections to the proposed bylaw.
Seconded.
So by Councilor Dykstra, second by Councilor Bland. Questions to all of them? No questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Minded, motion carried. That's why I have a motion. Moved by Councilor Bland.
Pay attention.